You were the only person that's ever seen that show.
It was released.
Yeah, it was. It's just not very popular.
When you were doing Sylvia, with all the kind of embarrassing moments about the character, plus all the merging and everything, how much more awkward was it with your brother being the engineer?
Unbelievably awkward. For those of you who don't know, okay, Aquarion. Who here has seen Aquarion? All three of you. Okay, so Aquarion is a mech show, and when they merge, they make sex noises. And it's really awkward. It's really, really awkward. But what makes it even more awkward is that after, I think it was a few episodes in, it was maybe 6 or 12 episodes in or something like that, they decided to switch engineers. My brother is an engineer at Funimation. My big brother is an engineer at Funimation, and they switched it to where he was the engineer. And I remember both of us coming to the realization, because at first we were like, oh yay, we get to work together. And then we kind of realized at the same time, and we just looked at each other and we were like, no, like that can't happen. And we both wrote emails to the higher ups, and we were like, so this is really awkward, and I really don't want to fake an orgasm in front of my brother. It's really weird. And then basically it was to where it just couldn't be changed. So I had to do that show with my brother. And the first time that we recorded it, ironically, it was whenever she was merging with Reika, and she hates Reika, and Reika's all dark and brooding and emo, and so instead of doing the normal it feels so good, it was, this is so awkward. So it kind of worked out well with that. But then the first time that I had to do it for real, my brother turned off the speakers to where they could hear it at the outside. I could still hear myself, but they couldn't hear me. And so the director, Michael Tatum, was like, you're gonna have to play it back. And he was like, no. You can fix it in post, I'm sure it fits, whatever, just no. So eventually we kind of had to get over it, and he said it got to the point where he was just so focused on the technical part that he was like, I'm not even really paying attention to what you're doing, I'm just making sure that the levels are okay and that it, fits and whatever. He's 2 years older than me. Yeah, so we're pretty close in age. Yes, that's the other thing, is that, for those of you who don't know, is that Sylvia has a really creepy relationship with her brother, where she's in love with him. So that made it even more awkward.
I gotta check this thing out.
Yeah. It's a fun show. It's a fun watch. You don't expect anything too deep, but yeah, Travis and Laura are also in it. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Questions? See you back there.
In Chit Chat, you had a lot of arguments with Shin as Georgie.
Yes.
Were you and Laura Bailey recording at the same time, or did you come in at different times? How did you adjust?
We actually came in at different times, and that's always how we record. We always record just one person at a time. There are sometimes exceptions to that, but for the most part, it's just one person at a time. And so as far as the arguments with Georgie, it's kind of the difficulties are there with any kind of scene that you do. You have to be able to trust your director, that they know what the other person is going to sound like, and that they'll be able to make sure that it sounds like you're having a conversation. So I trust Zach with my voice acting in life. So Zach Bolton, the director, is awesome, totally awesome, one of my favorites. And so I just trusted him, and he made it awesome.
You said also that you've done some directing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
How does that differ being on the other side of the microphone, instead of being the actor, being the director, being in charge of the voice acting life?
Yeah, as far as directing is a lot more difficult than voice acting. Voice acting is pretty low stress, because you just have to trust your director, and if you trust your director, then you just do whatever they say. You're just kind of like a trained monkey. And as far as the directing, you're the one that does have to know what's going on. You have to know the whole show front to back as much as you possibly can. And sometimes we won't know what we're directing until literally a day before we start, because they might not get the rights or something until just then, or they might have to switch up who's directing what or something like that. So a lot of times you wouldn't even know if you're going to have a job until the next day.
You would go on the internet and Google it. and
Exactly, to find out as much as possible, and then they'll give us a video with translation that we can watch and try and figure it out. But sometimes you don't have time to watch the whole thing before you start the audition process, which is really lame. Sometimes that you can run into difficulties with that. But the directing is so much harder because you have to sort of pretend like the other person is there, and you have to hear them in your head and guess what they're doing. So you have to know your voice actors really well and sort of guess what the other person in the scene will sound like and what they're doing.
If you're doing that and you're following it close to the Japanese, would you sometimes let the original Japanese voice acting audio play through just so you get an idea against the...
Oh yeah, anytime that we go in, we always preview the scene in Japanese, and hopefully by that time, once you get into that area of it, you would know, you would have already seen it yourself as the director, and then you play the scene so that the voice actor will know, and so that way they kind of know what the instinct needs to be, and they know where they're going as far as the scene.
So that helps a bit?
Yeah, it helps a lot. It helps a lot. Sometimes we won't watch only because we're playing a game, which is the not watching game, and seeing how much you can get just off of the first view. And when you have like veterans like Lucy Christian or Colleen Cleveland Bear and Monica Rial, a lot of times they just know and they get it perfectly without watching it. They get the timing and everything. So that's kind of a game that we'll play, but a lot of times you have to go back and do it anyway.
Do you deal with bombs a lot?
Bombs?
Basically, it's what happens when a voice actor purposely
When
screws
someone
up,
tries to screw you up.
and then they, just to get the left flaps down correctly, and then they say something that's really obscene.
Yeah, no, I actually do that all the time. I do that all the time myself.
Why then, like,
So-
when you're directing and someone else does
Oh, when I'm directing, I make my actors do that. I'll be like, so-and-so's coming in right after you. Say this. It's so much fun. And sometimes, actually, Lucy Christian is really hard to get. Like, she's really hard to throw her off. I think we only succeeded maybe one time, and I don't even remember what that was. But it was so rare. Like, somebody would say something ridiculously offensive and absurd, and then she would just keep going. And then afterwards, once she was done, she would start laughing. But you can't throw that girl off. She's pro. She's totally pro.
I asked Greg Aristotle. He just said, we'll go in, sit down, and the voice, boom.
Yeah.
And you can't get anything out of her. She's like, and that's
Yeah,
it.
Lucy is pro. Totally pro.
But have you ever had fun if you know like a voice actor's not right for a role as you're directing, that you ever said, okay, record, and then you know that they're not right initially, or will you have them record and then decide if they're not right?
If there is any point when I feel uncomfortable, like I'm not sure if this person is right or not, I'll call them in for a second audition. And it'll be, a paid callback, or we'll have them record the character for 2 hours. And if you'll know, usually you'll know in the first 10 minutes if it's them or not. But
So you'll never call them in knowing that you're not, that, okay, this may not work and you may have to.
I'll call them in with the idea, if they're coming in for the second callback, then I'll call them in kind of knowing this could be amazing or it could be awful. So it's kind of like a 50-50 chance. And most of the time...
But on the first audition, do you ever say, sorry, you're not it?
Oh, absolutely. And on the first audition, if you're not right for it, then you're not right for it. Then I don't cast you.
Right, but would you, if you see somebody, would you throw them out before they even record it? Or?
Oh, no. I'll let them record the whole audition. It only takes 5 minutes of my time. I'm not going to make them feel like crap. I'm not going to come up and be like, no, you're not meant for this. I would never do that. I would just kind of let them do their thing and then say, okay, thank you.
No.